woo, woo, woo.
Kathy, woo! Awesome. Okay, guys. So yesterday I did send you an email of all of the slides that I'm going to cover today. So hold on to these, print them out, bring them to budget camp. These will help you kind of have a refresher. Some of you have been in the system before, and some of you have not. My dog decided it would be a great time to bark when I'm on a large group call, so apologies if you hear that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share. Alrighty. I do not want to just reverberate what you guys are fully capable of reading, but I will just give you a high level overview. So today we're going to play in Elevate. Elevate, inside of Elevate is Forecast IQ. This is where we write all of our budgets, and it is a fairly simple program once you get through some of the more daunting tasks, which we'll review today. The reason we are going over this today is prior to budget camp, you all need to reforecast for 2024. What does that mean? So reforecasting means that you have your 2024 budget that is already in place for your community. Some of those we've exceeded budget. Some of those we have missed budget. So when we go to write 2025 budget, one of the items that we review is we compare 2024 to 2025. Are we seeing a huge influx in one area? And then we ask ourselves why. So it's important that the 2024 numbers reflect accurately. You may be a lease-up community in which the lease-up started slower than we anticipated, and we have been battling against budget all year for occupancy misses. So we want to true that up and reforecast in 2024 and tell the system, this is where we truly believe we're going to end from an income and expense standpoint in December of 2024. You're going to see how that ties into your starting occupancy for 2025 when we go to write those budgets. So how to log into Elevate if you have never done so before. So you're going to go to your Yardi One dashboard, and you're going to select Elevate. Once you go into Elevate, you're going to have a list of roles. Everybody's roles are different, based on CM or regional or my level position. So most of you are going to see your, say, Elevate multifamily forecasting. Regionals may see Elevate multifamily forecasting admin. They do the same budget function, so you just are going to click on Elevate multifamily forecasting. Once you get into Forecast IQ, you're going to see your Elevate dashboard for the budget. This gets everybody. Make sure that in the top of the dashboard, you are selecting the year that you're working in. So if you are reforecasting for 2024, you have to make sure that you select the budget year 2024 and then hit search. Your properties that you have access to for reforecasting are going to appear for 2024. When you finish up and you move into 2025, you have to make sure that you switch over to the budget year 2025. If you don't see the template you are looking for, it is very likely that you are in the wrong year. So today we're going to talk about reforecasting. We have gone ahead and we have set up everybody's reforecasting budget template for them. So I use 655 East Bay as an example. Once you are on that home screen, you're going to see the properties that you are assigned to, and you will click the blue hyperlink. One thing you're going to learn about Forecast IQ is that anything that is blue and underlined is a hyperlink, and it means that you can dial down into it. So you will select your property name and make sure that the revision that you're under is named the property name Reforecast 2024. Again, all of these have already been set up for you. But because we wrote the 2024 budget, if you move down one line here to, you're going to see there's 2 revision workbooks. One says 655 East Bay Reforecast, and one says 655 East Bay Budget 2024. This is already posted. This is what you see populate in Yardi as your budget. This is the one we're working on. Whenever you see these arrows, once you want to get into something, you just simply click this down arrow and it will expand and open up, and you will see that your budget template is present. So once you select the vision, the next step is you have to check out the budget. In order to check out the budget, you just simply click check out. If your budget is not checked out, you are not making any changes that are going to edit or save to your budget. Any questions so far? Cool. Just know that I am going to run through this in a live time inside of Forecast IQ as well. But I did want to review the guide with you guys just to make sure that there's no questions. One thing I think is important is to review some of the buttons and functions. So you are now inside of the revision. These 3 dots here are going to be a menu button. The majority of them you are not going to utilize, but it's important to know what some of them are. So if you've made changes to a budget and, say that like, hey, push on your admin fees or dial back on your occupancy, if you click view history, you can see every change that you have made in the past. Every change that you have made in the past. Export to Excel. This button will export the budget template into Excel. This is a quick, easy check for you to play in Excel with it. If it's easier for you to print it out to review it, you'll just simply export to Excel and you can see the data. Paste from clipboard. I don't highly recommend this, and we'll talk about why shortly. There is some manual data entry that it can be very useful for. So it is a function to use. Say that you had something in Excel and you entered in some of your manual data. You can paste that manual data in from the clipboard and it will automatically populate into your budget. The reason I don't recommend it is because of calculations, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. But there are instances in which you will be at budget camp and your regional manager may discuss some items for clipboard. I don't recommend, again, that you go rogue on the clipboard because of calculations, which we'll talk about. Very often, probably one of the number one items that we get is, I don't see that GL account. If you don't see the GL account, every GL account that Madison Communities has is pre-populated into your budget. However, you may have never spent in a certain GL code. The system, if you have it selected to do not show zeros, it is not going to show any rows that have zeros in that number. So if you have never spent money on gutter cleaning and you're trying to budget for it now, you're not going to see a GL there if you have suppressed zeros. You have to show 0 rows in order to see GLs that you may have never used before. So if you're looking for one and do not see it, this is tips and tricks. Make sure that you have the show 0 rows. The edit info is something that you don't really need to use. The edit info is how you can add an additional user to your budget. So every budget has assigned members, and that includes the manager, the regional manager, myself, and Christine. Say that there was a circumstance in which we needed to add an additional person, we can edit that information. The only other edit information is if we wanted to import actuals through additional periods. We only have uploaded actuals through June, since that is the only month that we are truly final. I know that we closed out in July, but we have not gone through reclasses and accruals. That information is not there. We do have the ability to edit once we are truly final on July, and we can upload those additional actuals. You will probably be far ahead on your reforecast and not wish to do that. And then last but not least, I'm just going to call this out, delete. Do not use that button. You will delete all of your, you will delete the entire revision workbook. All right, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts. configuration assumptions and revisions. These are going to be your two main areas. So you have now checked out your budget, and this is your main budget screen. You're going to see two tabs at the very top. One says revision worksheets and one says configuration assumptions. Let's talk about which each one does. So configuration assumptions, and I promise this will all tie together momentarily, so just hang with me. The configuration assumptions, I think of them as the foundation of your budget. So essentially, this is where you're going to assume things like your occupancy percentage, your rent growth, your renewal probability. These configuration assumptions you're going to do first. Once you set up your configuration assumptions, you're going to see how it ties into your revision workbook and the calculations that you're going to make. As a high level example, if I tell you that my renewal probability at my property is 50%, if I have 10 lease expirations in August and I have told the system that I have a 50% renewal probability, that means I am telling the system that 5 people are going to renew and 5 people are going to move out. That will then be tied into the revisions workbook or worksheet when you say, my turn cost for move out is $100 for cleaning, $200 for paint. The configuration tell the system on calculation that if it's $100 for a clean, I have told the system in August, I am projecting that I will have 5 move outs. The calculations are automatically going to work for you, in which they will say $100 times 5, and that data will be populated for you. So you don't have to do as much manual math through this budget software program. So I want to go through what configuration assumptions there are. So again, I'm not going to read through every single thing because you guys are fully capable of reading, but standard. I don't edit this section, but I do look at it because if I have historical data, it's going to tell me what did I budget for last year versus what actually happened. So I can look on standard for 655 and I can say, okay, they budgeted that they had a 40% renewal probability. Inside of this, it's going to tell me that that's what we budgeted. They had a 43% renewal probability that actually occurred. So that is going to help me when I go down to my lease renewal section, because I'm going to say, maybe we can push more on 655 and we should be shooting for a 45% probability of renewal. So the standard tab is just, again, going to give you some information on previous year budgets as well as actuals. Occupancy. You're going to spend a long time in this section at Budget Camp. So this section is so important. It's going to tie into so many of your calculations. I want you guys to know that when you make a configuration assumption, you can go back and change it. It just creates additional work, which we'll talk about, but you can go back and change it. But this is a section that you don't want to willy-nilly. You want to really think this through and come prepared to Budget Camp, knowing where you're projecting your lease expiration and where your occupancy goals are going to be. Rent growth. We're not going to leave anybody open to this one all by yourself. Rent growth is the most difficult. I think Jean has had experience with this, and it adds up very fast. So it's a very interesting algorithm. For reforecasting purposes, you guys really aren't going to touch this. But when we get into budget, we'll spend one-on-one time with each of you at Budget Camp on rent growth. Lease renewals, again, this is just a simple one of probability. And then we are not going to use the rentable items, unit turn, and custom assumptions. Our past experiences showed us that this does not tie out well. So there are other methods to doing this. One thing you'll learn about Forecast IQ is there's more than one way to get there. I have a lot of experience with the software, so I'm going to tell you that the ways that I am showing you are the most efficient. And then the budget milestones, these are just the deadlines that you have for turning in your budget. You can update these so that you can track it within the system. Any questions? Cool. All right, configuration assumptions. So to get started. So when you are utilizing Forecast IQ, the data is going to be on the screen, but there's always going to be an edit button if you're able to edit. So that little pencil is your friend. If you are like, just everything's locked, it's because you don't have the edit open. So you'll want to check your edit box, and then it will open up this screen. So we are under, again, the configuration assumption. So this is what it looks like when you open the occupancy part of the configuration assumption. So again, remember, we have all of these boxes. Now we have opened this occupancy box. Once I've opened that, a couple of things I just want to tell you about configuration assumptions and budget notes in general. Every time that you make a change inside of Forecast IQ, you have to put a note. So these notes will also become your budget notes. So it's very important that these notes are thorough. They're explanations as to why. We're not stating the obvious, but answering the why. And make sure that there's proper spelling, grammar, and punctuation, because these are going to be reviewed on many levels, and these are the notes that we will be reading. You're also going to see some past years coming up. You don't need to worry about those. We are only focused on 2024, and we are only focused on 2025. Whenever you make, don't hit this populate button. If I have an X, don't do it. Once you complete and make changes and you're satisfied with those, you have to hit save. Otherwise, your data will not save. So again, now here's a different, this is the occupancy, this is the entire tab. You would hit the edit button. For reforecasting, we are only reforecasting July through December. Your actuals have been uploaded for January through June. One question that I suspect you may have is, Rachel, we weren't 95% occupied in June. This does not matter. The system is overriding it with the actuals. So you can ignore this for the month we put in actuals, January through June. You are focused only on July through December. Once you hit edit, the boxes will open that you can edit. Where do you believe that your targeted occupancy is going to be for July? You guys should know that answer already. And then August, again, where do you think you're going to be? And you will edit that and you will save it. Oh, I do have one more note on this. On these two for occupancy, two handy reports that you're going to want to pull is your 12-month budgeted or your 12-month occupancy report, which is located in Yardi Residential Analytics, and then your projected occupancy report. Remember, when you pull your projected occupancy report, if your trend for October is 70%, that is not your targeted occupancy. You're going to get more leases between now and October. So you have to add in what you think you are going to obtain in new move-ins between now and October. One other item that you'll see in blue, which means that you can change it, is your actual lease expiration. You need to pull your lease expiration report inside of Yardi Residential Analytics and verify and make sure this information is accurate. If you feel that you may have additional lease expirations unaccounted for, which you shouldn't, but it could happen, say that, I'll give you an example, Dalton Station. They do a lot of corporate leases, so theirs could change. So if we think that we're going to get 5 more corporate leases and they're ending in December, that is not currently in the system. We would need to update that number, that projection, to say that we now think we're going to have 10 lease expirations in December. That is going to tie into your move out and your calculation. Rent growth for reforecasting, again, we're only going to enter for the months that we don't have actuals for. So I don't want to change anyone's rents and increase rent growth through the rest of 2024, except on the front of renewals. So if we are seeing a 2% increase, this is where we can say that renewals are seeing a 2% increase. This calculation is going to tie into your loss to lease. All right. That's it for the configurations, and I'm going to go into Forecast IQ and show you guys this. But once you are happy with those changes, you will then move to the revision workbook. Again, remember that you can go back if I tell you, I send this budget back to you and I say, oh man, you were not aggressive enough on the occupancy. Someone tell me where you're going to go to change the occupancy. Anybody tell me where we're going to go to change the occupancy?
Configuration assumptions.
Yep. So you're always going to want to go back to configuration assumptions if I'm talking about occupancy. You cannot change it inside of the revision. So you are going to bounce back and forth between the two. Note, if you make a change inside of the configuration assumptions, you are going to have to forecast in the revision workbook. Now we're going to turn over to the revision workbook, but I am going to switch screens and I am going to show you guys what it looks like inside here. Okay. So in live time, I'm going to Elevate. I am logging in. I am going to my Elevate multifamily. I am checking to make sure that I am in the section where I want to write a budget or reforecast, so 2024. I am searching. And it is populating everybody's budgets because I see everybody's, but it should only show you the budgets that you're assigned to. If you see more budgets that you should not be assigned to, please reach out and let me know. We have already created the revisions for everyone, so I'm going to click on 655 East Bay. I did a no-no that you'll see later, or somebody's already in here, maybe Jean. But this is what the page would look like, and I will click check out. Once I hit checkout, you'll see that new buttons appear for me. And I'm going to set up my configuration assumptions. I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to go to occupancy. I'm going to tell the system that in July, what are we occupied in for July, Jean? At 655. You're on mute if you're talking.
94.11.
94.11.
94. What do we think we're going to be occupied in August?
We are going to be occupied at 98.
Okay. So just watch what happens, guys, on these numbers. Nothing's happened yet, but watch what happens. Okay. See these projected move-ins? And I hit save. It's changing my data. So now I'm going to have more move-ins to get me into the 98 realm. This number you'll see when we go to revisions later, it will change the budget number to show the vacancy loss is now at 98% occupied versus 95%. So easy as that. You don't need to use this tab, just the occupancy summary. Rent growth. This little guy looks scary because there's a bunch of them. That is market rent. We're not going to change market rent. We are only looking at renewal growth. I am going to say that for the remainder of the year, we are going to see 1%. I'll show you a little trick. I want to apply 1% to every month I can. If I want to apply 1% to just July, August, September, October, November, December, and I hit populate, it is going to put that 1%. These functions scare you, you can do it manually. There are quick tricks too. I made a change, so I am going to have to make a narrative here. And then once I make that change to make it save, I'm going to hit save. I'm not going to do it to you, Jean, because I don't want to mess up your stuff. If I don't like what I did, I just hit cancel. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to say lease renewals. So for example, one area that we could reforecast here is we know based on the standards tab that in 2024, so far, 43.8% of people have actually renewed. We are actually ahead on occupancy. Market rent is telling us what we said we were going to grow. It can't tell us that data yet, but we have had a 2.8 renewal growth. So this is good data that the system's pulling for us. So we could reforecast. I know Jean's going to be conservative, which is, I'm fine with that, Jean. But we could go and we could change this renewal probability for the remainder of the year up to 44% because that matches our other items. And once I'm happy with those, I have completed my configuration assumptions. Easy enough? Yes, no, maybe so. Y'all are a lively group. We're going to get you way more lively than this at
easy.
Budget Camp. We're going to get you way more lively at Budget Camp. Yes, I love it. Cool. Okay. Turning into the revisions workbook. This is where you're going to spend 95% of your time inside of your budget. So again, reminder, actuals have been imported through June. You can pull your 12-month statement in Yardi. If you want to check the numbers for accuracy, they should be accurate. If there's an issue, raise your hand, let me know. We need to figure out how to get the correct data in there. The only one that is not a manual upload that came directly from Yardi is Madison Ridge. They transferred from a they transferred ownership entities and rolled into a DST. Hannah, I got you. I had to pull some Excel workbooks, but I was able to import all of your data. I just had to do it manually. So your information should still be accurate. I just pulled your old entity and your new entity books to get you so that you can forecast a 12-month because it's going to help you on your 2025 budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Hannah. All right. The mighty forecast button. The forecast button is what is going to pull over assumptions and your calculations. We're going to talk about calculation. We're going to spend a lot of time on calculation. You're going to do a lot of this at Budget Camp as well. Use this budget with caution, though. Never, ever, ever forecast all. I'm going to say it over and over again. Never forecast all. Why? If you have entered in any manual data and you hit forecast all, that trumps your manual data. You are going to overwrite your changes. I can tell you there are a lot of 4-letter words at Budget Camp if anybody didn't listen and they hit forecast all. Don't do it. All right, so going back, this is where it ties in. Remember those configuration assumptions on rent growth. Guess what? When you click here inside of your forecast button, the data is going to pull over and the system auto calculates your rent growth, which affects your loss to lease. So if I say that Foundry Point has $10,000 in loss to lease, but they are going to do a 5% renewal increase. Every time they secure that 5% renewal increase, their loss to lease starts to dwindle. The forecast, that is where the system is smart, and it is taking what you said that rent growth was going to be, and it is calculating it based on where you currently stand today, and it is dwindling down or increasing up your loss to lease. This is a scary slide, but this is important. So calculations, I mean, they're my jam. They're not everybody's jam, though. I'm going to tell you why they're my jam. So they are my jam because there is nothing more painful than me telling someone that they need to just, I need you to dial down or dial up your occupancy. Seems like an easy enough request until you realize that so many things feed into your occupancy. If I tell you that you need to dial up occupancy, that means that it's going to affect the number of application fees that you get. It's going to affect the number of administrative fees. It's going to affect if you have parking fees, renter's insurance, trash, pest control. The list goes on. So that is why calculations are so important. Instead of this becoming a whole budget rewrite because I needed a simple occupancy change, you can quickly do it because we have utilized calculations. I have provided a list of mandatory calculations. Those are going to include, but are not limited to, you can use more calculations. Application admin, garage parking fees, renter's insurance, trash, pest control. For expenses, it's going to include cleaning, carpet cleaning, paint, vacant electric, water, sewer, credit reporting, and renter's insurance. You're going to notice the workbook that I sent to you, it is asking you for the cost of all or the income for all of these items. You're going to need that data in order to plug it in during Reforecast and during budget time. So it is very important that you complete in its entirety the budget workbook. So let's talk about how to create a calculation. Now, the good news, most of you already have several calculations. Some of you do not. If you're a regional manager and you're a lease up, if your regional manager manually wrote your lease up budget, sorry, you're out of luck, you have no calculation. If your regional manager wrote your budget, your startup budget, inside of Forecast IQ, they would have utilized calculations. You want to make sure by going to, at the very top of Elevate, to Forecast Setup Calculations. Going to show you a list of all calculations that are currently available to your property. If the calculation is already there, you don't have to create a new one. You can edit the calculation. If you don't have a calculation, you can add one. 655, as this example, you can see, look, he has all these calculations. So there is a admin, garage, parcel lockers, because they have a parcel fee associated with their property because they have a special program, parking, so on and so forth. Say that Gene at 655 doesn't want the admin fee to be $250 anymore. He says, this property is premier, it's a $300 admin fee. All he has to do is click the blue hyperlink 655 admin. It's going to pop up and he can change the amount of the admin fee. If he doesn't have one that he needs, he's going to click add calculation. Add calculation button. So once we click that we need to add a new calculation, it's going to open this lovely screen up. And we're going to have to create a calculation code. This code needs to be your property and say that you are Madison Ridge. Your property code may be MRG. We just want to know and denote because remember that each regional manager, they have several properties. they need to be able to denote, they're going to see all calculations for all properties that they're attached to. They need to know if that's a Madison Ridge fee. They need to know if that is a Caroline fee. So if you are Caroline, you can be CAR. If you're Ridge, you can be MRG. If you're Madison New Riverside, you can be MNR, whatever that looks like for your property. But you need a quick calculation code. There is a character limit. That's why it has to be abbreviated. But below, you get to say whatever you want to say. So description is going to be more detailed, and it should be the property name and the full GL code name. So we are saying that we're creating a new calculation for 655 application fees. Always going to be basic on the revenue type. I need to tie this calculation to 655 East Bay. So you can enter in your property code if you don't know it. Sorry, this is cutting it off, but there's 3 little dots that'll open up. You can search your property and find your property code if you don't know what your Yardi property code is. Most of us have those memorized. Once you select it, you have assigned the property to this calculation. Now for the fun part, and this takes a little practice, most of the time, I would say probably 95% of the time, the budget calculation method is going to be based on occupancy or custom assumptions. You can drop this menu down here and you'll see other options, but most of the time it's going to, again, be the occupancy or custom assumptions. Then we want to know what we're tying it to within the occupancy or custom assumption. So what is your calculation based on? How are your application fees calculated? Projected move-ins. So this tells the system to take the number of move-ins that you have projected in your configuration assumptions and multiply times the number of move-ins by the app fee, which right here, we're going to say how much the app fee is. Then we're going to say that this is happening per detail. Detail is per instance. Or you can do it as a percent of a detail. So I'm projecting that 50% of our people are going to be charged a fee. Application fees, nope, that's a no-no. So it's on per detail. Caveat, what if your property is in lease up and you are frequently offering a $99 app and admin fee and you foresee that that special is going to be one that stays in place? Don't put $75. Put $35 because you're running a special. But guess what? In your notes up here, you're going to tell us why. Because when I go, gosh, their application fees look so low, I need to know what your thought process was on your calculation. Any questions? Super. After you've created a calculation, you're going to return to your revision workbook. I'm going to show you guys this when we do a live example. Hit the back button. Otherwise, you're going to think that you have to go back to your dashboard over and over and over again. I'll show you what that looks like, but hint is hit the back button. So once you've made a calculation, you're going to select your forecast button and you're going to forecast. So the numbers are magically going to appear. So I have put in a calculation, again, for the admin fee. I'm going to see this button here. It's going to tell me it's not yet forecasted. When I hit this button, it's going to turn green. It's going to tell me that I'm forecasted. And if I look into my budget, I am going to see that all of the numbers have populated for my admin fees. And I will show you guys what this looks like. So what about all those GL accounts that don't have calculations? Those are going to be where you do your manual data entry. It's easy. All you have to do is click the blue hyperlink for the GL. It's going to open that GL up in a new screen. You're going to select override budget, and you are going to enter in your manual data. Last but not least, I did review packaging your budgets. We can talk more about this in budget camp. But here are some brief instructions for packaging your budget. For the new year budget, I struggled whether I should give you guys the instructions or not, but I am going to go ahead and give you the instructions. Most of what we've covered, and the reason I went ahead and gave it to you is if you know how to reforecast, you know how to budget. So the big difference again is making sure that now if we're working on our 2025 budget, we're going back to that homepage and we're changing it to 2025 so that we can see that budget. I do have your 2025 budget templates already uploaded. I am going to ask you guys to please stop after reforecasting. Your regional managers need your reforecasting to approve it first. The reason why you should not work ahead and get into the 2025 budget is because if they are not agreeing and you're not in line with your reforecast, that is going to affect your starting occupancy in 2025. And I just don't want you guys to work backwards. I am going to switch over to Forecast IQ to show you guys what we just covered in the revision workbook. And then we'll open it up for any questions. All right. So, a couple of things. I'll go in order. So as you can see, the gross rent, market rent, and the loss to lease is saying that it's already forecasted. Yours, because I did it yesterday when I was playing with it, but yours is going to be blank for July through December. And look at all this lovely data. Now we already have our market rents that have pulled through all the way through the remainder of the year. We have told the system that we're going to see some increase in our renewals. It is calculated into our loss to lease. So there's nothing more that I need to do with that item. I also, remember on my configuration assumptions, told the system what I believe that the occupancy is going to be. If you take this number and divide by this number and minus 1 to get your occupancy, guess what that number is? It's 98%, which is what we put into the configuration assumption. And I simply did that again by hitting my forecast button, and I forecasted. Now, a little tip and trick too. If you see this calculator, it means that you have a calculation. If there isn't a calculator, there is no calculation. So this is a quick trip, not to confuse you guys, but if you already have a calculation it's assigned, you can go where I showed you before, but you also can just click the calculator and you can edit this and say, nope, this is going to be $45 now. And that will automatically update your calculation. All right, so let's go back to calculations. So creating a calculation, I'm going to go to forecasting, setup, calculation. I want to add a custom revenue calculation. I'm going to select add calculation. I'm going to make this a test. And I want to select, so remember I said that there are 3 dots. If I don't know my property code, I can search 655 East Bay, and voila, there she is. I am going to make an occupancy custom assumption. I am going to say that I am doing application fees. I'm going to say projected on move-in. They are $75. I want to charge them to every single person that moves in. this is a fun feature as well. I can do more than one calculation. So if I say that I only want this to apply August through September or August through December, I'm going to push my app and admin fees to $75, but this is my lease up period, so I'm going to make them $35. You can do that. You just have to apply it to the applicable months that you want it to be. And then I don't think I reviewed this in the slide, but it was on there. You want to map it to the correct account. So where is this calculation supposed to go to? And I'm going to tell the system that it needs to go to application fees. The way I did that again was just pressing the 3 dots. And I'm going to type and search what I want. Application fees. And then I click add. The add button is what adds the account, the mapped account. Once I'm done, I have to hit save. And here is my 655 test training. This is where, when you're bouncing back, this is my hint on the back button. Use the back button, because how do I get back to that other screen? If you hit the back button, it will. Otherwise, you go back to the dashboard and have to re-enter. So the back button. So you see how I have no data from July through December on application and admin fees? I now have 2 items in here because I've applied both of these to the GL code. If this is the one that I want to use, I can do that. All I have to do now, how do I get those numbers populate? I go to forecast, custom revenue, and it's right here in front of my face, and I'm going to calculate it. I'm going to hit forecast. I go back down to my application fees. You're now going to see that it applied application fees. If I charge $75, the system from those configuration assumptions says that I'm going to have, I don't know what that math is, 4 or 5, whatever, move-ins that occur times $75. We're not going to increase occupancy in September, and then to maintain based on lease expirations, move-outs, and the occupants we told the system, I am projecting 1 move-in per month for October, November, and December at $75. Now let's go to an example of one that does not have a calculation. Write-offs of rent. So I'm going to say, hey guys, I feel like I'm going to have like some evictions that are still going to happen. I'm going to say that $2,000 of rent in this month, $2,000 in this month, and you're going to make the notes. So projecting 2 additional evictions through 2024. Property has experienced an average of 1 eviction every other month. Needs to be justified. Don't just soften your budget. So it needs to be justified. I would look at this reforecast, and if Gene has had only $629 so far this year in rent write-off, and then he's projecting at the end of the year he's going to have $4,000, I would question, Jean, as to why, if we haven't had that before, are we anticipating it now? So this is where don't have anybody ask you those questions. Make the note. If there is a reason that you believe that's going to occur, this is where you tell us in the narrative, this is why it's going to occur. And you won't get those questions. We'll be like, oh, that's a great explanation. Yes, you should totally include those right off. So that is how you do manual data entry. I'm going to cancel. I don't know if Jean's budget. That's it, guys. That is Forecast IQ in a nutshell. So I am going to turn it back over to you all for any questions, concerns, or comments that you may have. I mean, I know I'm a good teacher, you guys, but come on, not a single question. Who, by a raise of hands, who's scared? Who feels nervous?
Yeah, I do. I
yes,
do.
Becca, yes. Okay. So let's talk about what is it that is making me feel nervous? What is it?
I was following your step by step. So I got a little lost at whenever you have to put like the numbers. So I have to go back to the workbook and just like redo it again. But it's practice make perfection.
It does. I promise you that you will be calculation experts by the time that budget camp is completed. Here's the thing, for the reforecast, because you guys have not gone through the full budget camp, as much information that you need to manually enter, that's acceptable. But I'm going to tell you that if you can follow the worksheet and practice the calculation, or follow this instructional guide and practice calculations, it is going to save you more time. But if you need to, for Reforecast, enter in more manual data, you can enter in more manual data. Just because a calculation is not present or is present, you still can override a calculation with manual data.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm. Christy, what about you? What's nerve-wracking to you about this?
It's always trying something new, but I'm really excited. I think that you truly did color code it and having an amazing team. I'm not as scared coming on with Madison as I would be with anyone else. I feel like you guys really do step by step, and I think it's just trying something new, but
yep.
I'm excited to exceed in it and actually learn how to do it. So that's it.
Remember that anything that you do, we can undo as well. So it's not forever. If you are like, God, that is wrong, and I don't know what I did, we can undo anything that is done. So don't be afraid to push buttons because it can be undone. You can remove what you did. Becca, what are your thoughts?
I'll second with Kristen. Just this will be my first time doing it, so that's a little, makes me a little nervous, but I'm excited overall.
Got it. All right. I want to cover one other item, and I know and not take up everybody's time. So inside of SharePoint in Madison Communities, I have expanded on our budget docs. If you click into 2025 budget docs, I've got the Forecast IQ instructions that we just reviewed. I've got your budget workbook for 2025. This is your budget submission checklist. So this will tell you once you're packaging for 2025, this is how you package. And then there is a review checklist as well. So once you submit to your regional manager, this is that spreadsheet that we all go back and forth with our comments on so that we stay on the same page and changes are clean. what I want to dive into, because you don't need to worry about this and you don't need to worry about this until budget camp. What you do need to worry about is the reforecasting, and you need to be worried about the budget workbook. The budget workbook is your end-all be-all guide to budget camp. If you spend the valuable time on this workbook, you will come to budget camp and you will have every piece of data that you need, and budget camp will be based on data entry. You will be able to nearly complete your budget at budget camp if you come prepared with your budget workbook. So this is the legwork. Nothing is outside of what you already know and do every day. It is data gathering. So your regional managers on weekly calls are going to be checking in with you. They will divide how they want to cover this information, and they will give you the expectations, but they are going to cover sections on your weekly calls to help keep you all on track. The first tab is going to be your rent. You can pull a market rent schedule. You can manually enter this data. We want to know what your current unit, what your unit types are, and what your current market rent in Yardi is. Do we think that that rent is going to increase? Or do we think we're going to keep market rent stable? If you have hella high loss to lease, don't tell me that you're going to have a 5% rent growth. You need to focus on dialing down your loss to lease. If you have $40,000 in loss to lease, your current in-place rents are nowhere near your market rent. Your goal is renewals and new leases to dial down your loss to lease. If you have loss to lease that is under $10,000, you are getting close. If you are $5,000 or less in loss to lease, you need market rent increases. Your in-place rents, what people are paying, can never, ever, ever be more than what we are telling Yardi market rents they are. So if I am leasing 2 bedrooms at $2,100, but my market rent in Yardi is only $2,000, I have a problem. They need to be in line. Your regional managers are going to help you guys with this. You're going to look at your rents together. Other income, simple task, guys. What are you currently charging in other income for fees? What do you think we should charge in 2025? Is it the same? Is it going to be more? Administrative fees. These are all, if you notice, these are all the GLs that you're going to work on. How much are you paying for telephone? Credit reporting. Already did the math for you. Every credit report is $35. This is the breakdown of how much each one costs. So you know that your credit reporting on expenses is $35. Guess what? We're going to do a calculation for that. Office equipment lease. What do you have under your office equipment lease? This is going to be your copier, your handy track, your parcel locker monthly fees. You need to know what that total is so that you can then plug that data in at budget camp.
Hey, Rachel.
Yep.
I know you doubled down on that credit reporting. I'm just curious to know, does that also fall in the lines with guarantors credit reporting, because we don't do criminal and those things? So is it a different cost, or is it still $35 for a guarantor?
It's $35 only for a standard applicant. So if it's a guarantor, you are only doing credit and civil. I'm sorry, you are doing civil as well in case they have had their own eviction.
Okay.
And then if they're doing income verification, then they will be charged the $10 as well. So it's a great point, Jean. So I'm telling you it's $35 per applicant. So if you have, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments and you're doing that calculation, should you only calculate per move-in that you're going to charge $35? Or should you put that total in there for credit reporting that you're on average charging $70 because you need to go back and you need to do the math? Like how many how many apartments have roommates. If you have 50% of your apartments have roommates, then you need to dial up this credit report number so that you can tell the system that I'm saying it's going to be times 1.5 or times 2 for my credit reporting. Does that make sense, Jane?
100%. Thank you.
Okay. So office equipment lease, you need to go back and find out what this cost is. How do you do that? Go into your 12-month statement. It's your BFS during budget. But pull your 12-month statement. How much are you paying for your copier? How much are you paying for HandyTrack? How much are you paying for parcel pending? Have that number ready to go. Are you seeing increases in 2025? High-speed internet. Are we seeing increases in 2025? Mobile phone, answering service. I have plugged numbers in here that I can guarantee for you guys. There are some numbers I cannot guarantee. But answering service through Rent Cafe is $100. Payroll, we got this from our payroll department, $65. Bank service charges, you only have this if your property is under debt management. That's really just Charleston. But you'll see it on your financials. If you have it on your 12-month statement, you need to question if you do not have it on your 2025 budget. Blah, 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 blah. So we go through and you need to go through and make each one of these. License and permits. Business license are a big deal. Most business licenses, if required, are based on receipts from the prior year. Do you know what your calculation is for business license? You're gonna have to do some math here. So again, this is do not wait till the last minute. Advertising, I have requested from CoStar what our 2025 pricing is going to be. But you want to know and list for your community what package level you're recommending, what package level we will be, and what the price is going to be. Every single year, CoStar, rent, they always go up. So we need to know what that is going to be for 2025. Beacon, your regional managers can certainly assist you with that. But you also can look back at your 12-month statement and get a really good idea of what you've been paying for it. Contract services. So I wouldn't sit here and waste my time filling this out. I would take this and I would copy and paste my contract service spreadsheet I've already got in place. But you guys need to do the work to find out what is the 2025 rate going to be. There are increases and you cannot assume based on the current rate that it's not going to change. When you have that budget miss is your responsibility because if it is a rate increase. You have to verify with your vendors if there is going to be a 2025 increase. So send those emails out now because a lot of them take a heck of a long time to respond to you. And then this portion is where maintenance needs to be a participant. Do not send your maintenance supervisors this entire workbook. And you're going to see why in a minute. They need to go to their vendors and find out what is our paint cost going to be for each floor plan type in 2025. What is our housekeeping cleaning fee going to be? What is our carpet cleaning fee going to be? They need to get these and help. And then they need to look at their maintenance supplies and they need to tell us how much of a certain item are they getting. This list can be absolutely expanded. If you've got an issue with a pool and it constantly is, it just constantly needs new chlorine. Well, we need to know how much chlorine they need us to have. I want maintenance to have a buy-in to the budget as well. And then last, I need to make sure that all team members have updated and understand when their permits and inspections for annual re-inspections are due. Everything from elevator, sprinkler, fire extinguisher, backflow, environmental inspections if you have them, and alarm inspections. When is it due and what month and how much is it going to cost? This is probably the #1 budget miss sprinkler inspections are expensive. Just because you are in lease up does not mean it is 1 year from the date we took occupancy of our first unit. Those could have been installed months prior. So we need to confirm with construction when those are going to be coming due for annual recertification and budget accordingly. And this is why you don't share the whole workbook with maintenance. You are going to have all of your associates and complete a payroll associate telling us what you're currently at, where you're paying them today, and then if merit increases are have been earned, what are you proposing to your regional manager for review of payroll? One caveat I want to repeat again and again. These are for budget purposes only. We do annual reviews at the end of the year. If we approve the merit increase for the budget, that is not your green light to tell all of your team members that you are giving them a pay raise because your budget has not been approved. So do not, based on this worksheet, give anyone an inclination of a pay increase. It is based on their performance and it is based on being a great team member. So it may not be 3% as a standard practice. Some team members may have earned more. You know, what is that recommendation? But have they earned it? Because it's also not just a given. So do not quote pay raises based on this worksheet. It is not approved until we have approved budgets and we have completed annual reviews. Utilities, we're going to talk about this at budget camp because y'all are going to hate me. Gene, he can attest to this. I know it's a lot of words. Read it multiple times. You will understand if you keep reading it. And if you don't, your regional manager can help you. I will tell you, if you do this correctly on calculating electric usage, for example, if you do this correctly, like I'll get Gene 655, you calculated it dead on. Do you know what the variance is for the year? $643 on certain utility areas. So
That's
it is
right.
a testament. It's a testament to it works, but you got to figure out the calculation. So again, you guys are going to work on this in sections, so it's not so much. And the last part I want you guys.
I want to put a key point there for utilities. Do keep in mind when you're estimating utilities, it's for the previous month. So your billing that's going to hit for July is for your usage in June. So you want to consider what your occupancy is from the prior month on how that's going to look. Just a heads up.
Valid point. And then this is the part again that you're going to want to loop maintenance into. So these are CapEx projects for 2025. This is your items that, every apartment needs from time to time, whether it's appliances or carpet replacement. We have put in a few things that we, want people to keep in mind, and also some years in which those things typically need to occur. But then this list is one for you to utilize as you see fit. If there's a wish list item, put it on here. If there is a project that you are aware of, a deficit that needs to be fixed, whatever it is, put it in there. But guess what? You don't get to put it in there willy-nilly. It has to have a quote. So pull in your maintenance supervisors. This is where they need to help as well and work with you as the community manager to gather quotes on items. So if you complete this workbook in totality, I promise that you will come and you will write the heck out of the budget. And I'm going to end there because I know I'm going over. Any questions or concerns or topics or anything regionals want to add to this discussion? Yay. Okay. Well, you all are going to hear from your regional managers as a follow-up to this. Don't panic. We will help you through the process. I know that last year some regionals chose to do, on a weekly call where you guys could go through this together and stay on track. They will put their game plan and certainly want to hear your voices on what you think will be most helpful to keep you guys on track. Really looking forward to budget camp. We have a lot of super exciting stuff for you guys. We're not going to reveal it. I'm not going to send out the full agenda because we want to have some fun surprises for you guys. But this is going to be our best budget camp yet. We're super excited to also have fun, wine and dine, you guys. We've got a ton of great vendor spotlights. We've got some really great gifts and giveaways for you guys. So I think it's going to be a super fun budget camp. So deep breath. Last thing I will say is we are right at a month out from budget camp. Make sure that you have staffed appropriately. I did note this at the time of sending out budget camp placeholders, but vacation time, unfortunately, we really need to place a hold on that for all team members so that your property can be covered while you are away. If you are solo like Becca, let's see if we can get Coco to cover the entire week since you have a part-time employee. Katie, if let's get somebody from Jean's team. Everybody's going to run slimmer because we're going to be gone. But let's make sure that we do that because everyone is leaving and coming in on Tuesday. I do want to ask that you guys also, if somebody needs to have a day off, unfortunately, it's just going to be one of those kind of Mondays. Let's put them on the front end, but make sure we're planning schedules in advance so that properties are fully covered. If you have a staffing issue or concern, please bring it up to your regional so that we can try and assist to find any gap coverage if needed. Sounds good. Well, I super appreciate you guys. I'm so looking forward to spending time with everybody in one room. There's a lot of new faces, and I'm sure you guys are excited to meet your new team members as well. So yeah, Kim, can't wait. All right, cool beans. Well, thank y'all. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your regional manager.